we realized we got to do more. For Cassie's sake, we got to do more.
Well, why are teenagers thinking about taking their lives? Why are they losing hope?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's going on? And I mean, how did we let someone like Cassidy, the silly little girl who was, the light of the party, how did we lose her? I am blessed, and it is an honor to be in the studio today with Kim Hess, one of my very, very good friends. And I thank you for being here. And
Absolutely.
for your willingness to share your story with us. And I think we'll just start off that way. Tell us a little bit about your story.
So, yeah, we live in the Woodlands, and we have raised our children here for the past 5 years. We've been married over a little more than 25 years now. And we were just this happy family plugged into our community, plugged into our church, have 3 beautiful, wonderful children.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2015, our world changed in an instant, because just 5 days before Christmas, we lost our oldest child, our daughter, Cassidy, to suicide.
Mm.
And it came as a complete shock to our family. Cassidy was 16 years old, and she would have been the last person that you would think would consider taking her life.
Mm.
She wasn't bullied. She wasn't depressed. She wasn't going through, any issues that we knew of at the time. I mean, she was the exact opposite of all of that. She was happy. She always had a smile on her face. She was just fun, loving. She was goofy, didn't take herself too seriously, didn't take life too seriously. I mean, she was just the girl that would just light up the room with her goofy laugh.
Mm.
She was just a joy to be around. And, she was plugged into her church.
Yeah.
And she had a great group of friends that loved her unconditionally and would have done anything for her. And, she had family that loved her and supported her unconditionally. We would have done anything for her, and we would have been there for her had we known anything, had she gone to any of us.
Yeah.
But she didn't. Cassidy kept silent. And ultimately, it was the silence that took her life.
Mm.
It was the Monday, the last week of school before Christmas break. And that's a stressful week for kids anyway, because they have finals all week. And so, it was just a normal Monday. Told her I loved her, kissed her goodbye as she left the house for school that day, and didn't think anything of it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I assumed to be a normal day was anything but normal for Cassidy, because the girl who always had a smile on her face was sad that day at school, and her friends noticed it. And one by one, they would ask her what was wrong, and every time she said nothing. She said that she was fine.
Mm.
By lunchtime, she was crying. And again, they were asking her what was wrong. And again, she said nothing, that she was fine. She was okay. And by last period, which was cheer class, the cheer coach pulled her aside and asked her what was wrong. They went, because she obviously had noticed that Cassie was not acting like herself. And she went down the list of questions that teachers are, trained to ask your students if they notice something's not right. And Cassidy answered every question perfectly. Walked away with a smile on her face. And then someone saw her crying to her car on the way, after school, on the way to her car. So there were signs throughout the day, but no one knew. And no one knew what was wrong. No one could put their finger on it. And I even talked to Cassidy on the phone on her way home from school. And I reminded her that her tutor was going to be at the house, I think, at 4:30. I should be home around 4 after I pick up the other 2 from school, and to have her books and everything ready at the kitchen table for her tutor, and not to take a nap because that's what she loved to do when she got home from school, because they get up so darn early.
Yeah.
She'd have to come home, go straight to bed, and take a quick nap before she starts anything. And so I said, don't take a nap. Just be ready for the tutor. I'll be home shortly. Well, I ended up getting home a little later than I thought that day, traffic and just kids getting out of school. And when I did get home, it was probably about 4:15, and her books weren't at the kitchen table. And so I assumed that she was upstairs taking a nap. So I went upstairs to go look in her bedroom, and she wasn't there. And so I started calling her name, and I started walking down the hallway upstairs to her exercise room, and that's when I found her, because she had already taken her life. She had hung herself on her exercise equipment. And in an instant, when I walked in the room, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Sure. Yeah.
I just didn't believe my eyes, and but also knew in that moment that my life was changed forever.
Yeah.
So, we called 911, and all the paramedics, everyone got there, and to our surprise, they worked on her for about 30 minutes, and they were able to bring her back, and they got her heart going again. And so you can imagine our, how we felt. We just thought we had so much hope at that moment. We thought God had answered our prayers. The first thing we did whenever this happened was fall on our knees and start praying.
Yeah.
And so they got her heart going, and they ended up life flighting her downtown, where she was put on life support. And for 6 days, she was on life support. In that 6 days, she never opened her eyes. She never took a breath on her own. We never got to hear her voice again. We never got to tell her how much we loved her. And then after the 6th day, we had to say goodbye to her again. Yeah. And so we did tell her how much we love her and asked her to save us a place in heaven, because we would see her again one day. And then the day after Christmas, we buried her. And sometimes it feels like it was yesterday, and sometimes it feels like it was a lifetime ago. But, it doesn't get easier. So we've, since then, we've learned a lot. Yeah. We've learned how to live out on our faith. Yeah. And how to lean on our faith and God to get us through something like that.
Absolutely. You wonder how people that don't have a relationship with Christ, how do they make it through that?
I don't know how they do. Yeah. Because I've talked with some families who have lost their child to suicide, who didn't have the faith to lean on. And it was in their grieving process, and their recovery was completely different than ours. The only way that we are where we are today and where we can actually feel like we can live again is because of our relationship with God and our faith.
I tell you what, you are an inspiration to me. You've been an inspiration to hundreds out there. And tell us a little bit of what you felt God leading you and Jed to do after. Shortly, not too long after.
No, it wasn't too long after. We lost her at the end of December, and I think we were approached in April. Because our community lost so many students, teenagers, to suicide that year.
Yeah.
Cassidy there were 6 that I know of, just in our community alone in that year. One, even after Cassidy, between Christmas and New Year's, there was another young life lost to suicide. And so, and no one was talking about it. And I didn't realize Cassidy was number 5, because no one was talking about it. And I guess that's one thing we did differently than, I guess, most of these other families, is that we were talking about it.
Yeah.
While when Cassidy very first went to the hospital in Houston, our principal, Dr. Merle, showed up at the hospital just to give us his love and support, and just to let us know that, that he was supporting us, and that we were surrounded by prayer, and that they were praying for us.
Wow.
Because, of course, something like this happens, and the rumors, people were texting on our way to the hospital. My phone was blowing up with text messages and just saying what's going on. I'm like, how's this work it out so fast?
Yeah.
But it does. And so, so much that was being said wasn't even true. So I know when our principal, before he left the hospital, I said, well, what are you going to do with this information? He's like, well, what do you want me to do? I said, well, Cassie's still alive.
Yeah.
And she needs prayer. So just tell him the truth. I said, just tell him to pray for her.
Yeah.
And we need a miracle. And so I said, just straighten, just cut the lies, out, and set the story straight.
Yeah.
Tell him what happened, and tell him that that she needs your prayer. And so that's exactly what he did. He sent an email out. And so what I've been told is that helped the students, and it helped the school and just the community as a whole to process it, and to gather and pray, and to just try to make sense out of it. Of course, there was no making sense out of it, but they were at least able to talk about it,
right?
Instead of just being, kept in the dark,
right.
From the truth,
right?
So, since we were so transparent about our story, I didn't hide. We didn't hide behind it, because we didn't feel shame, and I think that's one thing that so many families feel, because there's so much stigma attached to suicide and everything, that they feel shame. When we were broken.
Yeah.
We were completely heartbroken.
Sure.
And we were confused.
Yeah.
But there was no shame in Cassidy's story. We just felt horrible that we didn't know, that we didn't figure it out before, and that we didn't see the signs, or what were the signs. And so whenever, we're just going through the whole grieving process, we were approached by, because I had worked, I was an architect, so I'd worked with Howard Hughes Corporation, and Judd was a physical therapist, and he had been working for Memorial Hermann, where those two CEOs got together and they decided, we need to do something about this, because apparently this is a problem in our community. We are losing way too many young teenagers to suicide, and we need to talk about it as a community. We need to talk about it as a community, instead of just keep hiding it under the rug. And so they had planned a community speaking event at our church, the Methodist Church, and they asked if I was willing to share Cassie's story. And of course, I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this. I'm still trying to mend my heart, much less how can I possibly be helping anyone else, But I prayed about it, and after a while, I talked to many people about it, and tried to seek counsel, and talk to my pastor about it. And he finally encouraged me, if you just allow yourself to be vulnerable and share your heart, share Cassie's story, her story might be able to save someone else.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we did. So I agreed to do that, share Cassie's story at our church. And it was standing room only. It was a packed house, and it's a pretty big church.
Yeah.
And there were other families that shared their stories too. And I just remember, it was the night, immediately after I shared her story, well, that night, people came down and just hugged me and cried with me, and just told me thank you for talking about this. For once, as a community, we are talking about this. And they started sharing their stories with me, and how their child is hurting, and maybe think about suicide, or how they had thought about suicide, or how they had already lost someone to suicide, but weren't able to talk about it ever. And now we had just pulled the curtain. We had broken the silence. I'm like, okay, enough is enough.
Right.
We've got to address this silent epidemic, because it's, and then, just contacted by so many families that needed help.
Yeah.
And I realized that their children needed help, and they weren't talking. and they didn't know where to start. And so it just opened our eyes. I'm like, this is so much bigger than what we thought. We thought we just felt so alone. And we realized they feel alone.
Yeah.
Everyone just feels so isolated and alone. I'm like, if we just talk about it, I mean, so many, we have CEOs that are hurting just as much as Cassidy was.
Mm-hmm.
So it just started unraveling a lot of brokenness with a lot of people, and we realized we got to do more. For Cassidy's sake, we got to do more. And so, and of course, our hearts were the teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why are teenagers thinking about taking their lives? Why are they not? Why are they losing hope?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's going on? And I mean, how did we let someone like Cassidy, the silly little girl who was, the light of the party, how did we lose her to suicide? And so they started, of course, everyone, the bottom line is, because no one's talking about it. Everyone keeps it inside. Everyone's keeping their hurts. We brag about all of our successes, and we paint this beautiful picture on our, our Facebook profile, but no one wants to talk about the pain behind that picture.
Mm-hmm.
And, as humans, we think that we have to put this perfect smile on our face every day and just soldier on and not reach out for help.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that we realized, that y'all have to be, the safety net for each other, and y'all have to be the voice of hope for each other in your schools, in your circle of friends, in your church groups. Don't be afraid to talk about these heavy things, because it's today's world is so different than it was when we were growing up.
Absolutely.
With technology and social media and being bullied over the internet and just all of that stuff, it's so different. And so, anyway, so we decided that we need to do something about it, and we need to talk about it in the schools, because they spend so much of their day at school.
Mm-hmm.
So much goes on at school. The teachers need to, open up their eyes at school.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because sometimes that's when so much happens, and that's when, and then they get home and they don't want to talk about it. Then they shut down, like Cassidy, she didn't want to talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we got approval from our principal, Dr. Merle, to start a club at school for the purpose of, preventing teen suicide, and to talk about suicide prevention and mental health.
Awesome.
We are shocked that we got approved.
So fantastic.
We're so grateful that he is just 100% behind this and supportive of what we did. But it was the kids that wanted to be the voice of it. And so it was awesome, because it had been done before.
Yeah.
And so what we thought would just be a few of Cassie's friends, talking about it after school, end up, I think our first meeting, they had like 50 something kids and then it just turned into, something wonderful, that the kids were so happy that they could be the voice for their peers and that they could provide a safe place to talk about it. And
I mean, there's something about when darkness is held here, it can captivate you. But when you get it out, it has no power over you. And so we go by that verse, John 1:5, that just says, when light shines in the darkness, and darkness cannot overcome it.
Amen.
And so everything that you've just said to me is that verse.
Yeah.
I praise the Lord, you and Jed both were willing to say, you know what? We're not holding this back. We're not holding this just to us.
Yeah.
We are ready to be a voice for others out there. And we're going to spread this message, and Cassidy's voice will be spoken right through us. And you've been like I said before, you've been an inspiration to all of us on our team.